Hello, thank you for watching another video. And also, thank you for emailing me any questions that you might have. And if you want me to do a particular lesson, if you want it to be a certain age range, if you're thinking of an infant classroom and you'd like a lesson for infants, or a specific strategy or a specific genre, please email me and I will try and share a lesson that I've learned in the past myself and pass it on to you. So today I want to share a reading comprehension lesson that I use with my students, and I actually have used this lesson over and over again, and it is very effective. And I want to share specifically how I teach visualization. And how I teach visualization is that I usually refer back to my own type of reading and share how I might have used it in a book that I read over the weekend or last week. And then I explain to my students how what helps me to better understand stories is if I close my eyes and I step inside the main character or one of the characters, and I use my senses and I imagine in my mind, I put pictures in my mind of from the words, what do I see? What do I hear? What does it make me think from what I see and hear? And then it helps me to make predictions as to how I think the character is going to act next. So for me, teaching my students these steps for visualization, it's been very successful because it really is what I do as a reader. So I matched this lesson to Standard 4 2820 under Interpret Stories, but it really could fit many standards across many grade levels. The standard that I did have in mind, though, was without prompting, independently use a range of strategies, including anticipation and prediction, and imagining events as they are described. And my individual students, uh, I find that a lot of times they're just reading and then they might miss a good prediction as to what they think the character is going to do next or what's going to happen next in the story because they really had not put themselves in the story. They were surface reading. So the book that I might use this to teach would be Come On Rain by Karen Hess. And the pictures are gorgeous. So for the rereads, it's nice to see what John Muth has put in place for the illustrations. So with my students, I might sit down with them for today's lesson and talk about how over the weekend I was reading a book, which I really was, and the setting is in Australia, and the main character is very different than me. It's a male character, and just his outlook on life is different than how I view the world. But I was trying to better understand the story and better understand and anticipate what would be happening next because that's why reading is fun. And so I found myself that I stopped for a minute. After I read a few pages, I stopped and I put myself in his shoes and I imagined what it would be like to be working where he was in Australia. I used the details that the writer had put in the story, and I was imagining what I would see, what I would hear, and it helped me to think about how is this character thinking, getting to know him in his space, in his setting, and what had his past actions been for me to make my prediction as how he would act next. So this is something that I do as a reader all the time, and it really, really helps me to enjoy what it is that I'm reading and to interpret what it is that's taking place in the story and see the details to put them together to know and make predictions as to what I think is going to happen next. So in this story, I would say to my students, readers, what I would like you to do is try what I tried over the weekend and see if it works for you. What I want you to do is just close your eyes and as I'm reading, try and put yourself in the character's shoes. And then once you're there, make that picture from what you are seeing, hearing, and thinking as I'm reading the words. And then it will help you to think, how will the character act next? So close your eyes and make that picture as you're inside the character using your senses. What do you see, hear? What are you thinking? The sound of a heavy truck rumbles past, uneasy. Mama looks over to me. Is that thunder, Tessie? She asks. Mama hates thunder. I climb up the steps for a better look. It's just a truck, Mama, I say. I am sizzling like a hot potato. I ask Mama, may I put on my bathing suit? Absolutely not, Mama says, frowning under her straw hat. You'll burn all day out in this sun. Up and down the block, cats pant. Heat wavers off tar patches in the boiling alleyway. Ms. Grace and Ms. Vera bend, tending beds of drooping lupines. So readers, as I'm reading that, I put myself inside this character. And I know that it's a child and she's with her mother. So I also know that I can see a city, and there were lots of things that were said and written so well that it helped me to visualize that it truly was a city. So obviously the mama asking Mama, can I put on my bathing suit? It would probably be a younger child, because usually we ask our parents to do something when we're younger. The setting is hot, sizzling like a hot potato. And then it says here, up and down the block, heat wavers of tar patches in boiling alleyway. So I know it's the city. And I can now really put myself in that setting, and I can see the picture. I can see a little girl. I can feel that she is sweating, and she so desperately, desperately wants to cool down. And I think back to the title, and it's probably rain that she wants. I think that she's in the city. She wants to put on her bathing suit to just try and cool down, and she really wants that rain to come. So I wonder if if I make the prediction, if she will eventually get to put that bathing suit on. And I would have to read on to see, but I am going to make a prediction because of the title, Come On Rain, that the rain eventually does come. So what I would do at this point is I've modeled my own thinking. So I've thought of my individual students, I've modeled my thinking, and I want them to now be able to try. I want them to be able to practice. And I usually have my students practice right in front of me, because then I can listen in and see who gets it, who doesn't get it, who needs it on a deeper level, and so forth, before they go off on their own. So I would keep reading, and I would say, students, readers, close those eyes, put yourself in her shoes, and then make pictures in your mind. What do you see, hear, and think that will help you to know how will she act next, what will happen next with this character. I stare out over rooftops, past chimneys, into the way off distance. Not a sign of my friends Liz or Rosemary, not a peep from my pal Jackie Joyce. And that's when I see it coming. Clouds rolling in, gray clouds bunched and bulging under a purple sky. A creeper of hope circles round my bones. Come on, rain, I whisper. So readers, you go ahead, turn and talk with your partner, open your eyes, try and tell back to your partner what it was that you were seeing in your mind. And how did you think it felt to be the character? What do you think she was seeing, hearing, thinking? And then what do you think is going to happen next? How do you think the character is going to act next? So at this point, I'd listen in. I'd let my students who are in partnerships, because I always have them sitting next to a person that I can have them turn and talk with, so they can practice what it is, and I can hear what it is that they're saying, and I can hear that maybe some having trouble making that picture, or some are having trouble with understanding how do I put myself in the character's shoes, literally. And then I have to help them through and give them a little bit more examples. So then I would call them back together as a group, and I might read on, and I might have them turn and talk one or two more times, practicing this strategy, practicing it. And then they would go off and in their own independent reading books, their own reading material, they would try this out of this visualizing, making sure that they were all in fiction books. I think would be great for this lesson because I'm asking them to put themselves inside of the character and to match with the book. You might expand on this lesson and do nonfiction books with real people who have lived, and imagine putting themselves in their shoes and seeing, hearing, and thinking. The twist on that, it wouldn't so much maybe be to predict what the character is doing next, but it could be to teach empathy, to put themselves inside of someone who is someone that we're reading about, maybe a biography. So there are ways to do this with nonfiction as well. You might just curve the lesson a little bit. For this one, it's for predicting what the character will do next. For a nonfiction, it might be to empathize and think about the impact that that person that you're reading about had on the world, and what we might learn from that person, and things that maybe they did that surprised us, and yet they still ended up someone that we might be reading about. So that's my lesson for today. Sorry that it still is a little bit long. I hope it was helpful, and I appreciate that you are watching the video. And again, feel free to email me any questions, and I will really try and answer those questions. And again, the Google document is open. So have a great rest of your day, whatever time of day it is, and thank you again. Bye.